Seen a picture of yourself and gone, oh, I don't look so great. If you have, ladies, you are not alone in this. I think all of us have looked at ourselves in a certain outfit or at a certain point in our lives and just thought, oh, I just look terrible. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I have brought on a good friend of mine, Sarah Gowans, who is an expert in this. Say hi, Sarah.
Hi, so good to be here. Thank you.
And I'm so excited to bring her on to talk a little bit about body image resilience. And I know that this is a topic that we as women particularly struggle with because I think it's a tool the adversary really uses on us, as women. And so I'm so excited for Sarah to come on, and she's going to teach us about body image resilience, 3 steps to move from shame to freedom. But let me introduce Sarah to you officially with her bio, and then we will let her kick this off. And if you guys have any questions or comments, just drop them in the chat, and I will read them to Sarah as those come up. So Sarah Gowans has been coaching clients to help them improve physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional wellness for over 20 years. She's a licensed massage therapist, intuitive craniosacral therapist, foot zone therapist, and intuitive eating counselor. She earned a bachelor's degree from Utah State in human development and family studies. She combines her love of the Savior with a passion for teaching to integrate gospel principles into everyday life. She offers practical ways to find peace and joy during the beauty and challenges of everyday living. Sarah is a wife and a mother of 5 daughters. I can see why this is important to you, Sarah. She's also a Gigi to 1 grandchild and finds great joy connecting with those she loves. So I'm pleased to present Sarah Gowans.
Thank you, Tamara. I love that. That's so good. I am so excited to come and talk with you about this topic today because it's so important, and I feel like it impacts. There's not a woman that I know that this doesn't impact. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited to talk with you about it today. Okay, so to start off, I actually want to start with a question. If I ask you this question, how do you feel about your body? I'm going to pause for just a minute here, and I want you to think about it. And if you have a pad and a pen, even write down for a second just a few thoughts of what come to mind when I ask you this question. How do you feel about your body? Okay. So while you're thinking and writing, I am going to tell you a little story. So a few months ago, I was driving in the car with my 7-year-old daughter, and she was just so happy and excited. And we were just having this fun conversation. And because of the work that I do, body image is kind of on my mind a lot. And so I just thought, man, she's just so happy and joyful. And I thought, I'm going to ask her this question. So I said, Lily, how do you feel about your body? And she just got this huge smile on her face, and she just said, oh, I love it. I love that I can do cool tricks and I can create things and I can do just so many fun things. And she just kept talking, and I just thought that is so interesting. So now I have a question I want to ask you is, did you notice when I asked her that question, what did she say or what didn't she say? So she did not say one thing about how her body looked. It was all about the amazing things that she could do with her body and how she uses it to move through the world and just live her life. And I just thought that at what point do we go from, like, as a kid where we just see our bodies as something that it's a vehicle for us, to being so conscious and critical about our appearance? Because I don't know about you, but when I was first asked that question, how do you feel about your body? I wrote down or thought about how it looked. And that was the main thing that came to my mind, and all the flaws that it had. So that was the question that I thought of, was when do we go to that point? So I'm going to ask you another question. Can you remember the first time you became conscious of your appearance? So you might have to think back a ways to remember, because it does happen. Like, when we're young, we're not aware, but then at some point we become aware. So sometimes there might be something hard that happened, that maybe someone made a comment about our body, or we just started to notice that there was a lot of value that's being placed on how we look. Maybe there was something hard that happened, or maybe you just kind of gradually became aware. My first memory is, I don't remember how old I was, but I was younger, and I remember somebody made the comment to me, "Well, you're going to get fat as you get older." And I just remember thinking, the way that the person said that made it seem like if my body changes as I get older, that's not a good thing. And from that moment, I really started to become aware of how my body looked, and to just really be conscious of that. So there's actually a study that was done with 5th to 12th grade girls that showed that 69% reported that media influences their idea of the perfect body and body shape. And then 47% reported wanting to lose weight because of media. That is a heartbreaking statistic to me. This is 5th graders. And there are actually other studies that I read, that I've looked at, that show it really begins right around age 7, and sometimes even age 6. It's young that we start to notice and get this message sent to us that there's a specific size and shape of a body that is good, quote unquote good, and that if we don't look that way, that we have less value. So I want to talk a little bit about what happens when we do kind of lose that innocence of seeing our body, or just having it be a vehicle to looking at it from how we are seen. So when you see yourself as a physical object first and a human being second, this is called self-objectification. So what happens is we start to live our lives from the outside looking in. It's like our identity becomes split in two, and we're the person that's living our life, and we're the person that's being looked at. So it's like we're split in two, and we begin to monitor ourselves for how we look. So that self-objectification is when we're just seeing ourselves as a physical object and how do we look, and that human being part becomes in the background. So you might say to yourself, okay, so and actually I'm going to say, I don't know if you guys do this, but I don't know when I started doing this, but I started doing what's called body monitoring, where I'll stand in front of the mirror and I'll kind of just monitor my body and just think, a lot of times I'll do it after I get out of the shower, because there's the mirror right there. And I start to monitor my body and think, do I fit the ideal? Do I not? Where's the flaws? And I just kind of pick it apart. And I would dare say I'm probably not the only one that does that. I think it's very common. And as I said, it's called body monitoring. And there's numerous studies about self-objectification and body monitoring. And if you say, okay, well, yeah, so I do that, but what's the harm in that? Like, it's what what does it hurt? So there's so many studies that show that when women, or men too, body monitor, it creates feelings of shame and guilt, and eating disorders or disordered eating have a higher percentage rate, or you have a higher percentage rate of having an eating disorder or disordered eating when you body monitor. And I don't know about you, but I cannot think of a time when I have engaged in body monitoring and then came away feeling better about myself. Either what happens is when we do that, we're really comparing. And I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, comparing leads to despairing, but I love that phrase because it's so true. It really does. When we compare, it either puts us in a one up position or a one down position. If we're putting ourselves in a one up position, we might be, and we can also do this just walking into a room, right? Like, we might walk into a group of women, a room that's a group of women, and kind of size ourselves up to how other people are looking in the room. So if we're putting ourselves in a one up, we might think, okay, my body, I think, looks better than this person or this person. And so this creates disconnection, and it puts kind of a feeling of one up, which is separates us. Or we put ourselves in a position of one down where we think, well, I don't look as good as them. And that it's just comparing, and it doesn't lead to good outcomes. So, I told you a little bit about my story with this. And for much of my life, even though I'm not in a large body, I still had so much shame and guilt and just fear about my body changing that for years I just was in this spiral of shame and fear and guilt and just wanting to change my body to get it to look exactly like I thought that it should. And I was constantly objectifying myself. So after a while, I just thought, you know what? Enough is enough. And I'll tell you, there was one moment when I was going through a really, really hard time in my life. And I was under so much stress that I actually lost a lot of weight because I was depressed and I couldn't eat. And all this weight that I always thought that I wanted to lose, I lost. And it was so fascinating to me because when this happened, I one day got out of the shower and did my body comparing that I had always done. And all of a sudden, the thought came into my mind, you're too skinny. You need to put on weight. And I was shocked that that thought came into my mind. And it was then that I just said, enough. Enough is enough. I am so done trying to fit this ideal that's so unattainable. And either I'm trying to lose weight or I'm trying to gain weight. And I just thought, that's it, I'm done. So I began a journey where I really began to just study and learn. And I came across this book, and I'm going to share it with you guys because this book is so powerful. And a lot of um, what I am teaching you today comes from this book. So it's called More Than a Body, and it's written by Lindsay and Lexi Kite. And they are twins. They're researchers. They have their PhDs, and they did their PhDs or their dissertations on body image. And so they really know what they're talking about. So I'm taking some principles from this book, and I'm going to share them with you today because I have found so much peace and freedom as I've put these principles into action and taken them into my life and really come to realize that I am more than a body. I get to live my life with joy, and my body gets to be imperfect, and it's okay. And so we're going to go over 3 things that are going to help us to build body image resilience. Now, I want you to notice that I said body image resilience. I didn't say we're going to have perfect body image or that we're going to always feel great about our bodies, because that's just not the case. We live in a society where there's just so much focus on it, and that's not going to go away. But it's okay, because what we can do is we can build resilience so that we can not have it affect us as much from day to day, and we can just start to get stronger and stronger. So, okay, so here we go with these 3 steps. This is how to build body image resilience. We're going to realize, release, and reframe. So, again, it's not about always just loving your body, but it's just taking these steps to build resilience. So, the first step is to realize. Okay, the first step to any time you want to make change in your life, always it's about awareness. So we're going to begin to notice when we start to objectify ourselves. We're going to start to notice when we are looking from the outside in. And before we get into that, I actually want to ask you the question, where do we get these messages that our bodies need to be fixed? Because that's kind of the thing, right? Is like, we think to ourselves, well, my body doesn't look a certain way, so it needs to be fixed. So where do we get that message? If I'm teaching a class and I'm with a group of people and I ask this question, everybody always just says, well, everywhere. And it really is everywhere. I think for me, when I really started to wake up to this, and in that just notice how often I was objectifying myself. I was driving down the freeway one day and I had probably about an hour drive. And I was going along, and all of a sudden, I just started noticing the billboards more than I even usually do. And I could not believe billboard after billboard after billboard. It was all about fixing your body. It was like, if you want to suck fat off your body, come to this place. If you want to get rid of wrinkles, use this product. If you want to fix your teeth, do that. I mean, it was so many just messages that were like, fix your body, fix your body, fix your body. And you see it on social media, you see it just all around us all the time. We literally are swimming in it. And when I really started to wake up and realize, oh my gosh, this I am getting sent this message that my body needs to be fixed multiple times a day for 40 plus years. I'm 48 now, so over 40 or 48 years. That's how many times my brain has been getting sent this message. So, to create that awareness, I want you guys to just start. My invitation to you is to, as you start to go through your day today and tomorrow, just really try to be aware of how often you hear this message. And we do it to ourselves too. You'll hear other women say, "Oh, I need to lose weight," or I shouldn't be eating this dessert because my body doesn't look how it should," or whatever. Those comments, we're talking about it and we're seeing it constantly. So it's no wonder to me that we fixate on it, because those are the messages. So that's step number 1, is start to notice the messages. And then we also want to create awareness about when we're objectifying ourselves. So that's the second piece, is to start to notice, when am I noticing my appearance? Like, I even will do it on Zoom calls or something like this, where I see myself in the camera and I'm really noticing, how do I look? So, not necessarily that there's anything wrong with it. I want to say that, we want to appear good. That's just, we want to take care of our appearance. But when it kind of becomes an over obsession, then that's when we want to notice. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is, we're going to release the need to fix or hide. So, what happens is, we all experience body disruptions where we might be going along and feeling pretty good about our body, but something happens that kind of shakes us up, and we suddenly are feeling this disruption to our body image. When we get those disruptions, what we've been taught is that your body is the thing that's the problem, and so you need to fix it. So we have that disruption, and now we're thinking, oh, I've got to lose weight. Okay, I'm going to clean up my eating. I'm going to cut out some sweets. I'm going to go get my teeth straightened, whatever it is. We think, I'm going to fix it. Or the other thing is that we think we need to hide. So I don't know about you, but has there ever been a group photo where, I've done this, when you think, I'm going to just go to the back of the group photo because I don't want my body to be seen, or you'll take your child and put him in front of you for a photo to cover your body. So that's the hiding piece, right? So when we have these shame and guilt feelings about our body, if they don't fit the ideal, our go-to is to fix or to hide. But we're going to release the need to do that. And I wanted to just kind of talk for a second about, well, what are those body image disruptions? So tell me if this looks familiar. I thought this meme was so funny, and you can find there's many different ones, but it's so true, right? Have you ever been at Target and you really do like look at the self-checkout camera, and you might think, "Oh my gosh, is that what I really look like? I have got to start working out more, or I have got to cut back on the sweets." Like, it just, that if that how I really look? Or many times it's a picture. Maybe you see an old picture, and you might, or even a current picture, and it kind of takes you off guard, and you think, is that really what I look like? And then it kind of sends you into this disruption, right? So that's a body image disruption. We can have these when maybe we have a wedding coming up, or we're taking a beach vacation, and all of a sudden our appearance we become insecure about, because we're going to the beach and we're going to have on a swimsuit, and maybe we feel really insecure about that. And so that's a disruption, and we think, I need to fix it or I need to hide. I'm going to buy clothes that are going to cover up my body when I'm at the beach. Like, maybe I'll buy a different swimsuit than I'm comfortable in or whatever, or I've got to lose weight before I go. So remember, step number 2 is release. We're going to release that need, and we're going to do something else instead, which we'll talk about in 1 second. So I
Can I
want to
ask a
put,
question? Can I
yes,
ask a quick question?
absolutely.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm going through like the premenopause weight gain thing here. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna bring up maybe a question here because I know that recently I went to my doctor and I'm like, let's just do like an overall blood panel because I want to make sure that I'm healthy because that's really what's most important to me.
Uh-huh.
Am I uncomfortable that I've gained a lot of weight over the last 5 years? Yes,
Mhm.
but I'm like, the most important thing is that my body is healthy. And we got the lab results back, and she says, okay, there's a couple of things in here that we need to monitor, and some of these things are fixed by like exercising more and eating better and stuff like that. And I've always considered myself to be pretty good at that, but having a doctor say, if you want to stay healthy longer.
Mhm.
So I guess my question is, when you're saying release this fear, or release this body shaming, um, how do you navigate that, especially when it's something with regards to your health? I mean, you know what
Mhm.
I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's such a good question because it's a really common question. And it was a question that I didn't understand in the beginning either. So, a lot of times we correlate weight with health, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is a paradigm that we've been taught, and it's one that took me a while to realize it's different than I thought. Is that we think, well, if I gain any weight, that means I'm not healthy, right? But I love how you said you looked like you took the markers, like you did the blood work and you did all of that. So those are really better measures of health. And it's one piece, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when one thing I'll say is, first of all, let's take the word health and let's broaden our definition of health. Okay. So mental health is a really big piece of health. And a lot of times we don't take that into correlation when we kind of pigeonhole into thinking, I've got to lose weight in order to be healthy. So if your health markers are great, like your blood sugars and all these different things, then I would just take that into consideration. So I'm also going to say, I'm not saying like throw eating a good, well-balanced, nutritious diet out the window. And I'm not saying don't worry about moving your body. Those are obviously important.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to look at if there is something that needs to change in your health markers, like you said, let's look at what behaviors can you do in a healthy way that keeps good mental health, and and then try to change those markers. So for example, if you're very sedentary and you hardly move at all, is it good to move your body more? Yeah, sure, that's great. And I'm not saying don't do that. So when I say release the need, I'm not saying, oh well, it's all out the window and we don't need to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe just think about what's a way I can move my body more that feels good and gets me active, but it's not, I'm obsessing about, I've got to work out in order to lose weight. And I will also say, a lot of times we couple gaining weight and losing weight with being healthier or less healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell people, let's, okay, so go ahead and change the behavior. That's awesome if you need to like move your body more, but let's not correlate the weight loss, whether use that as a measure of success or not. Does
Mm.
that make sense? Is that
Yeah.
clear, or does that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because what happens is our bodies do change and we do gain weight as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times in the medical community, and it's helpful, I recommend finding a doctor that's a weight inclusive doctor, that because they're starting to find that BMI is not the best indicator of health. And so if your doctor is just using BMI, there maybe is a broader way you can look at it. So find a doctor that's really weight inclusive
Mhm.
and encourages you to, shift some behaviors that doesn't involve restriction. Because and this is like a whole separate discussion. We could do a whole, we could do a
Sorry, I
whole
didn't mean
other,
to like derail your whole presentation. I
no,
just
it's,
was like,
you know
how
what?
do we navigate that? You know what
I'm
I mean?
really glad you asked that question because it's so common.
Mhm.
So, and we can, if you want, we can have another topic on intuitive eating, which is a separate thing, which is anyway, if we go into diet mode and we start to restrict, that actually is a predictor for weight gain. So
Hmm.
this is something it's hard for sometimes for doctors to get their mind around, because in the medical community for so many years, that's kind of how it was taught, and it's starting to shift. But going into restriction is just, it's not helpful because it harms our mental health, right? So that's a lot of
Mhm.
times we think I need to start restricting in order to change my body. And as I said, that's a whole different discussion for another day. But so just what I'll leave it with for this is, um, if there are behaviors that need to change or that could change that help you, get better health markers as far as your blood work goes and stuff like that, that's awesome. Go ahead and do
Mhm.
that. But I would suggest taking away, like, monitoring your weight as your marker for whether you're healthy or not healthy.
That makes sense. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to do the blood tests to begin with, because
Yeah.
I thought, are my hormones off? Is my
Yeah.
thyroid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is something else triggering all
Yeah.
this weight gain? And
And those
so,
are and those are great questions to ask. So there's
yeah.
nothing wrong with saying, "Okay, I'm gaining weight. What's happening?" So
Mhm.
I love the way that you approach that, Tamara, because you did go about it and say, instead of saying, "I'm gaining weight, I need to go on a diet," then
Mhm.
you looked at, okay, what's the cause of it, right?
Mhm. What's
So if
triggering
all your
this?
markers are good, guess what? When we go through menopause, we gain weight.
So exciting, right?
It's just what happens. And it's just what happens. And so because society says our bodies shouldn't change, so we start to panic as we get, this is such a common conversation for women that are in their 40s and 50s and
Mhm.
60s, because our bodies change right about that time
Mhm.
and we freak out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that you asked that question. That's a really good. I hope I gave an answer. And if not, maybe we can circle back to it at the
No,
end.
that's great. I will let you
So
get back to your presentation, and I'll just keep
yeah.
monitoring the chat.
Thank you. I know, I love it. That was so good. So actually, Tamara, that's a perfect lead in for this quote that I was about to share, which says, this comes from the book, and it's Lindsay and Lexi Kite. And it says, our bodies are not the problem. It's our thoughts about our bodies that are the problem. I'm going to read that again because it takes a minute. Our bodies are not the problem. It's our thoughts about our bodies that are the problem. We can fix and hide all day long, but it's not going to solve the problem because our bodies are not the problem. So, but what we can do, the good news is that we can do the inner work to change our thoughts and our beliefs, and we can start to notice, why do I have such a fear about gaining weight? Why is it triggering me so much that my body's changing when I'm going through menopause? And by the way, Tamara, I'm right there with you. I have had the same situation. So, it's so common. It's so common. So we can start to look at our thoughts instead of thinking we have to change our bodies. Okay, so this goes into step number 3, which is the reframe. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little reminder. Number 1 is to recognize or to become aware. We cannot change what we don't see. So the first step is always awareness. So we're going to recognize, we're going to just start to notice how often we're being sent the message that our bodies are wrong, that they shouldn't change, and that we need to fix it. And then we're going to also recognize when we're objectifying ourselves. Step number 2 is to release the need to fix or hide. And I loved Tamara's clarification that to fix doesn't mean, I'm not saying we don't need to have healthy behaviors. Those are really good things. We do want to take care of our bodies and we want to have healthy behaviors. But what we don't want to do with the fixing is go into restriction and dieting and extreme measures to try to change our body in a way that's not going to be healthy. So that was such a good clarification. Okay, so number 3 is reframe. What we can do is we can start to reframe and create new neurological pathways so that when we have these thoughts come up of, oh, my body just doesn't look how I want it to, we're going to start to work with our thoughts and our beliefs, and we're going to shift that really is going to bring us more peace and joy as we're going about our lives, living and doing all the things that we're here to do. So there is a growing body of research. I'm a little bit of a research geek. I love finding studies and just see what's the latest science. And when it comes to body image and body monitoring and all the shame and guilt and eating disorders and disordered eating that comes as a result of that, there actually hasn't been much that they've been able to find that is able to kind of mediate between the body monitoring and then the markers, the harmful markers that I mentioned. Excuse me. But there is a growing body of research that's showing to help, and it's self-compassion. So Kristen Neff is kind of the queen of self-compassion, and she has a whole body of research and resources that she has. If you just Google her, Google self-compassion and Kristen Neff, and you will find all kinds of resources on self-compassion. So what we can do when we start to notice ourselves going into this shame or we're not feeling good about how we're looking, we can create a new neurological pathway and we can start to have compassion for ourselves and just have different things. Excuse me. We're going to start to say different things to ourselves that are going to help us to have that outcome of peace and joy. So one of the things that we can do is we can have affirmations on hand that we can just repeat. And Tamara's going to put in the chat. I actually created a freebie that you can go, and it has a list of affirmations that you can say. I use them all the time. Some examples, not necessarily on the freebie, but I'll just give you some examples are, I am more than a body. And I am here to, my body is a vehicle, not an ornament. And there's all different kinds of affirmations that we can say to give ourselves compassion. Another one that I'll say is, it's really hard to be a woman in this society that is constantly objectifying and saying we have to look a certain way. And so if I'm feeling bad about my body, I just give myself that compassion and just say, it's okay. No, my body's not perfect. And maybe it doesn't look the way that I want it to look, but it's okay. And it's hard and it's fine. I love myself anyway. So anyway, if you want, you can jump over to the resource that Tamara's going to put in the chat and get those affirmations. It's just a list that you can say and just repeat those over and over to start to create new neurological pathways in your brain so that you eventually, and if you don't believe it at first, it's okay. You just keep saying it over and over, and eventually you start to believe it, and then you start to have this new reframe. Okay. So there is a process that we can walk through when we have that body image disruption, and it's a deeper process. And I'm not going to take the time to go over it today, but I am going to later do kind of a master class on this where I'm going to keep the group kind of small so that it's intimate, but we're going to just kind of walk through this process so you have a real life example of, okay, here's my specific situation, and we're going to kind of walk through it and do the boots on the ground work. So this is just a quick snapshot of what it looks like. You can do this work yourself. When you have the disruption, you're going to pause and check in with yourself, and you're going to name the disruption. You're going to rethink how you're going to respond, and then you're going to choose your response. So that's a little bit of a recap of what I've been saying. But if you want to be part of that class to walk through this with me in a coaching kind of a thing, just go to that freebie that Tamara put in the chat. And if you enter your email in there, that will put you on my email list. And then I can keep you updated on when I schedule that class, and then you can come join if you want to. So if you want a deeper dive, that's an option for that. Um, I also want to pause just for a minute here and just say that you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's easy for you to say because you're in a smaller body and my body's a lot bigger and it's hard. And I just want to give compassion for that because our society marginalizes people that are in bigger bodies and a lot of times put the blame on you for the way that your body is. And I saw a statistic yesterday that surprised even me, and I've been doing this work for years. And this was posted by a doctor, and it said that we have so much less. Well, let me phrase it this way: genetics and environment and other factors that are outside of our control um, account for up to 85% of how our body is. 85%. So the diet industry doesn't want you to know this because they want you to think that you have all this control over, that you can manipulate your body exactly to how you want it to be. And I just want to give some softness and some compassion for all different body sizes. And for even for me battling this, if you're in a body that society says is wrong, the farther you are away from the ideal, it can be harder and harder just because you're marginalized and you're made to think that you're wrong or your body is wrong. And I just want to send some love and compassion for that because it can be really hard. Um, okay.
Can I
So
jump on one
this
more
is another quote. Yeah, for sure.
I
I
just
love
want,
it.
I loved what you said there about different body sizes. I remember when my daughter was a teenager and she started going, and I kind of go back to those teenage years because I think that's when we start to notice other people and how we look
Yeah.
because our body is changing. And so I think anytime our body changes, we're kind of like, wait, what's happening? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But my daughter was going through puberty and
Mhm.
she's like, Mom, I'm not like stick skinny like a lot of these girls in my class and stuff like that. And I paused her right there and I said, Noelle, look at your parents. Look at your DNA here, friend. You know, I said, I am not 5'2". I am
Mhm.
5'9". You know,
Mhm.
I don't have a petite frame. The last time I was petite, I was probably like 7 or 8. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I was born with broad shoulders and I've always been tall. You know, I have cousins who are guys who are like 6'4", 6'5". You know, this is the DNA that is in this body right here. I'm not going to be petite. And my husband has big, broad shoulders. He's a little bit husky. But if you look at his DNA, that's
Yep.
exactly who his parents and his grandparents were. And so I just
Yep.
said, pause and think. This is the DNA you
Yeah.
got. You are
Yeah.
not going to look like 5'2", size 2. Do you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
are not, that is not in the cards for you. I'm sorry to break it to you.
I love that you did that, Tamara. That's so good that you did that because some of the studies that I read show that this is actually when a lot of young girls get into disordered eating and start to go on diets, is this time frame because their bodies are starting to change and the parents freak out and they put them on a diet. And then that begins a cycle of shame and body cycling, which actually leads to more weight gain, by the way. And it
Mm,
begins this cycle that is so harmful. It's so harmful. So I love how you handled that because you just taught her it's okay. This is how you are, and it's okay. It just
mhm,
is what it is. So at
mhm.
least she got that message from you, even if society is not sending her that message. That's
It
really
is
great.
hard.
Yeah,
It is hard. And
it's
you know
hard.
that raising daughters, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, you know.
And every body is different.
Yeah.
Every body is different. Even in the same family, you'll see different sizes of bodies.
Yep.
And so the deeper I've gotten into this work, the more my heart has gone out for people that are just naturally in a bigger body than is society deems normal because they're made to think this is my fault and it's a moral failing and I should be able to do something about it. But that statistic, Tamara, said 85%.
So crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So
Well,
again, I'm not saying don't care about your health. Like we still need to move our bodies and, and eat a good, well-balanced diet. But let's maybe not take it to such extremes where we're harming our mental health,
that
right?
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the balance you're creating here
Mm-hmm.
between body health and mental health, that there
Mm-hmm.
needs to be a balance between that.
And shifting the frame of what is body health, because
Mhm.
we have put such a correlation on only weight, that we think someone that's in a bigger body is obviously not healthy. But the fact is, somebody could be eating the exact same that you're eating and moving their body, exercising, working out, whatever, the exact same that you are, and they're still going to be in a much bigger body than you because that's their DNA. So we
Mhm.
can't judge someone's health by looking at them.
Mm.
That was a shift I had to make. And I'm ashamed that I even used to make those judgments of like, oh, that person's in a bigger body. They must be lazy or they must be, whatever. It's just not the case. And I'm so grateful that I got knowledge that helped me shift that awareness and get rid of that bias that I used to have and realize we just can't judge someone's health by looking at them. Somebody might also be on medication that causes them to gain weight. Somebody might have an eating disorder and that's why they're in the body that they're in. You don't know if someone loses weight. As I mentioned earlier, I went through, I didn't say what it was, but I went through a divorce, which was highly, highly traumatic for me. And I lost a ton of weight and people were complimenting me on my weight loss.
Mm.
It was not healthy weight loss, right? It was
Mhm.
because I was so stressed, I couldn't eat and I lost a ton of weight. So you just never know why someone's in the body that they're in, which
Yeah.
is a little side note of I don't ever comment on someone's body, period. But I used to comment if someone lost weight because I thought that was a compliment, right?
Mm.
But I realize we don't know why they lost weight. Maybe they have cancer, or maybe, they're stressed, or maybe they are purposely trying to. I don't know. But what happens when they stop dieting and the weight comes back on? If we complimented all that weight loss, we're affirming smaller bodies are better,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
not,
that I think that's a
yeah.
really
So
wise observation.
it's putting that emphasis on, oh, you are doing better, you look better because your body's smaller.
Mhm.
So I don't even compliment
So so
anymore.
what do you say to people if you notice that they're looking healthier? Do you just say, "Hey, you're looking healthier"? Because I'm just like, well, what do you say then? You don't want to affirm that losing weight is the right answer. What do
So
you say?
define for me what that means that they're looking healthier.
That's a good question.
See, Tamara, that's so common because we think that if they're losing weight, they're healthier, right?
Mm. Mhm.
So the assumption is like, okay, so that's why I'm curious what you mean by looking healthier. Is it that they I'm trying to think of an example of health that you could see.
I think probably just bigger muscles or something. I don't know, because I know that for me, one of the strategies I've employed over the last year or so is trying to incorporate like strength training into
Uh-huh.
my exercise routine. I've always been a walker.
Okay.
But as I've incorporated strength training, I've noticed that I am getting stronger. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
that's awesome.
So I and that's the catch 22 when you're building muscle.
Yeah.
You might be losing fat, but you're
Yeah.
not necessarily losing weight because
Okay.
muscle weighs more than fat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm not saying I want to, again, because people misunderstand and saying, oh, you're saying that you shouldn't be healthy. You shouldn't care about gaining muscle. I actually just started a strength training program also. Maybe we
Oh,
should do it together.
good job.
So that's great. So here's the mind shift, right? So
Uh-huh.
this shift is 2 points. I have 2 points. Number one is I don't necessarily think it's wrong to say, oh, you look stronger, you know?
Mhm.
That is great I want to gain strength. I don't think it's wrong to want to get stronger, right?
Mhm.
I think that's a great goal.
Mhm.
But just something to consider is you are also objectifying You are putting the value on the muscles or the appearance, right? Not necessarily right or wrong, but it's just how often do we gain our value by how we look, right?
Hmm.
So
Instead
that's,
of from God, where our true worth comes from.
yeah.
Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying like sometimes after I give this presentation, people are like, they don't dare compliment me on how I look. I'm not saying we should never compliment each other on our appearance,
Uh-huh.
but we're so out of balance, right? We
Hmm.
get so much value. And especially for me, as I've been doing this work, is I had such a heavy balance on my appearance that when my body started to change, I panicked because my body was changing. And then that was a really red flag to me of, okay, I need to do some work on my true value here, you know?
Hmm.
So, so yeah, that's just a thought of like, if you want to comment on someone, you look healthier. I don't, again, a lot of times we correlate weight with health. So usually what you're saying is you've lost weight, which means you're healthier. But
Right.
so that goes back to the point of, well, what does that really mean? Are
Yeah.
they healthier? Because so people could have said that to me, but I wasn't healthier. I was
Hmm.
going through I was depressed, right?
Yeah.
That's why I
Yeah.
lost weight.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and I love that you're asking these questions because it's so like, it's hard to start to reframe what we have been taught our whole lives, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It literally, like, we're challenging the very paradigm that you've been looping for years and years and years.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I love these questions because I guarantee you that probably everyone has those same questions. I had those same questions too.
Okay. I will let you get back to your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So actually I'm going to wrap it up. So this is, and I love, again, like Tamara, your comments are so perfect for what I'm leading into next. So this is positive body image isn't believing your body looks good. Again, that's going back to the looks. It's knowing your body is good regardless of how it looks. One more time. Positive body image isn't believing your body looks good. It's knowing your body is good regardless of how it looks. So it really is a paradigm shift of just knowing how I appear in the world, how my body looks isn't what is the most important thing about me. And so often we as women, and again, it's actually getting to be more so for men. It's been women have been objectified for so long that we've started objectifying ourselves. But women struggle with this so much, and just taking that paradigm shift and just realizing I am not I am not my body. I am more than a body. My body is a gift. And that actually takes me into this last thought that I want to leave with you, is that our bodies are really a gift. And sometimes it can be hard if we don't look how society says we need to look to accept our bodies, flaws and all. But when we quit piecing out the parts of like, how does my belly look or how does my booty look or how, whatever, and we just see our body as a whole and one part of our soul, our body and our spirit together, it gives such a broader picture, and we can start to realize our bodies really are a gift. And we all have varying levels of ability. Some of us are able to walk, some of us roll on wheels, some of us, I mean, we all have different abilities with our bodies. But I I want to just end with a story that again was with my daughter Lily. So she, as I mentioned, a lot of times this happens from like around age 7 that they start to become aware of appearance. And it's actually from the time that I told you the first story until now, it's been about a year, and she is starting to become aware of her appearance, and she's starting to become aware of other people's appearances. So a little bit ago, I was standing in the kitchen and she came up behind me and this might be TMI, but I'm going to share it anyway. She just started like punching my booty and she's just punching it and punching it. And I was like, what are you doing? And she goes, it's just so floppy. She said, it's just so floppy. It's so fun. And I just started laughing. And so a couple years ago, if she would have done this, that would have triggered me so much into shame and guilt of like, oh, I have got to, start to tighten up my booty or whatever. Like all the thoughts would have come in. But this, I actually just laughed and I just said to her, isn't it so fun that we all have such different bodies? And I love it that our bodies get to, we get to do all these things together. And I just kind of said to her, I love it that, my floppy booty gets that's a muscle, and we can walk, we can hike together and we can, and I just connected with her and we kind of laughed and just said, yeah, we love our bodies. And it was such a connecting moment for me to have that with her and just say, yeah, I do have a floppy booty. And I love it because it allows me to spend time with you and walk. And it was just so connecting. And I hope this was another thing that as we do this work, we shift these paradigms in our own minds, we can start to help the next generation to just connect with them and to start to love their bodies for what they are at younger ages and to just be okay with their bodies changing over their lifetime. We can start to mimic that and set that example for them. And it's so connecting when we just use our bodies to do good in the world. So the last question that I want to leave with you today is, when you wake up tomorrow, who are you going to connect with and what are you going to experience with your one amazing body? Thank you. That is all I have, Tamara.
I got to click the right button so I can come back on.
I knew you would be here.
I know. It just takes me a second. I have to minimize the chat and then anyway.
I should have given you a heads up.
Oh, that's great. So I just had to click the right button. But thank you so much for coming on, Sarah, and for sharing your journey of discovering just the negative thought patterns that I think the adversary really does reinforce and kind of thrusts at us, especially as women. It's something that, because we're constantly exposed to so much media, like you said, driving down the freeway, and that the adversary has those opportunities to kind of come in. And the interesting thing about this is that he's been at this for thousands of years. Yeah. And so he knows what chinks in our armor to look for. Like if you've been self-conscious about your weight or your bust size or your booty or something like that in the past, when those things come, it's like the adversary just sits and throws little fiery darts at that one little spot. Like, hey, that's right. You totally need to lose weight, or you totally need to, you've got wrinkles showing up in places you didn't have them before, or, stuff like that. And I think as I pondered this more, that the answer is learning to be able also to realize our worth in the eyes of God. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That is where true worth really lies. And the more we listen to God versus the adversary on that, and realize, I'm a daughter of God. I have infinite worth and value as his daughter. I'm beautiful and lovely in my own way. And reaffirm that. I love that you have the affirmations that people can get. In fact, I'll throw those up on the screen one more time, really quick.
It really is helpful because we really have been saying that message to ourselves for so long that, our body has to be perfect for us to have value. And that's the most important thing about us, that it kind of really helps to start to kick back against that old paradigm as we create that new, like we know it, right? We know we're a daughter of God. We know that that's where our worth comes from, but we forget sometimes. And of course we forget, look at where we live, So that's where I love the self-compassion piece, because it's like, oh, it's okay. I just forgot for a minute. It's fine. We don't even need to beat ourselves up, because that was another thing when I first started making this shift. I would beat myself up that I was being hard on myself.
Satan's like, double point,
Yeah.
double fist to the face.
Was like,
Woo!
"Oh,
Yeah.
you are terrible that you've been doing that to yourself. Oh my," and so then I was beating myself up for beating myself up. So it really it really is helpful to have just notice it. Just, "Oh, I'm doing it. Okay." And then have the affirmations to just replace it and
Yeah.
have compassion. It's okay. Of course I do that. I live in this world. It's fine. I just don't
Yeah.
believe it anymore.
Yeah. And I was just thinking that a little prayer here and there wouldn't hurt either. God, I'm realizing I'm doing it again. Help me to remember my true worth
Yes,
as your daughter,
so
that
good.
and inviting God and his spirit in when we're
Mhm.
feeling those negativity. And I loved what you said at the end there about shifting the floppy booty story to say, isn't it great that I have those muscles back there? So you turned what could have
Mhm.
been a negative into something you're thankful for. And I think that's
Mhm.
another huge tip
Oh,
that I know
yeah.
I heard a lady present probably about a year ago, and she was just saying that she tries to say positive things about her body every day as she wakes up. She may feel a little, oh, how the older you get, you kind of feel a little achy and painy when you wake up. And she just said, oh, I am so thankful for these hips. They are wide, but I've given birth to, 6 babies, and
Mhm.
I'm so thankful I have hips that work. And so she's just started rotating the things that
Mhm.
were negative and that she
Mhm.
used to harp on to things that she could say, now here's reasons that it's awesome.
Yeah.
I thought that is so great. And if we can just do that one thing,
Mhm.
Satan may throw that uh, weapon at us and we'll be like, not today, Satan. I am
Yeah.
thankful for my wrinkles because I'm living on this earth and I'm old enough to have them. So take,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yep, it's true. That's so true. And the thought just occurred to me too that, we all, like I said, we all have varying abilities, and so it may be harder sometimes to give that love. Like sometimes people will say, "I just don't love my body. I just don't."
Mm,
And I just want to give like a quick little side note that if you're in a space where you're like, I don't love my body and I'm not going to tell myself that I love my body, that's okay too. Um, I would maybe invite you to look at starting with respect of, if you
mm,
don't, at least you can respect. If you can't love your body yet, a, a step could be to respect your body and say, I respect myself enough that I'm going to go walk today. And like, if you need more movement in your life, or I respect myself to eat a balanced, meal today or whatever. And you can start there. If it feels too much that you can't love your body and give gratitude for it. And the piece, I love how your friend gave gratitude for what her body could do,
mm,
rather than how it looks. And I think
mhm,
that's a really good thing to do too. If you just look at it more for like, what can my body do? That helps
mhm.
too.
Yeah. Focus on the cans,
Mhm. Yeah.
the things we can do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining us today for Sarah's Women Warrior Workshop. We feel so blessed to have you on and presenting about this. This is something, like you said, that women struggle with. And I hope that you have found something that has helped you in your daily battles with the so much of this goes on in between our two ears, so many of those challenges. So knowing that you're not the only one, that God loves you and he'll help you get through wherever you are. Start today, wherever you are, and take one baby step forward. Don't you think, Sarah?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me, Tamara. What you're doing is so important. It's such a great resource for women, and I just am so grateful I had a chance to be a part today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies.